The early morning sun cast its golden rays over the modest neighborhood where Oscar had spent most of his childhood. Though his father, Mr. Andrew, was the CEO of one of the country's most successful car companies, the Andrews family had chosen to live a simple life. Mr. Andrew believed in raising his children to value hard work over entitlement, a lesson he often repeated. "Oscar," his mother called from the kitchen, "don't forget to eat something before heading out." "I will, Mama," Oscar replied, his voice filled with excitement. Today was a special day. He had just graduated with honors from one of the top universities in the country, a feat that had taken years of relentless dedication. As the firstborn of 3 children, Oscar had always felt the weight of responsibility to set an example for his siblings. He glanced at the framed photograph on the wall of his father, standing in front of the company's flagship showroom. The name Andrew Motors shone brightly on the sleek glass building behind him. That company had been Mr. Andrews' life's work, a symbol of resilience and determination. Oscar had always admired his father's work ethic and commitment to fairness. He remembered the nights when his father would come home late, still smelling of engine oil and sweat, having worked alongside the mechanics to meet deadlines. Today, Oscar was headed to that very showroom to explore the car his father had hinted at gifting him as a graduation present. He wasn't expecting anything extravagant, just a vehicle that would ease his commute as he began his professional journey. Dressed in a simple shirt and jeans, Oscar stepped out into the cool morning air. He had chosen not to wear anything flashy. He believed in letting his character, not his clothes, define him. As he boarded a bus to the city center, he couldn't help but think about how far his family had come. They weren't always wealthy. His father had started as a mechanic, working his way up through sheer grit and determination. The wealth and success they enjoyed now were the fruits of years of sacrifice. When Oscar arrived at the showroom, he paused to admire its grandeur. The building was a testament to his father's vision, sleek, modern, and bustling with activity. Taking a deep breath, Oscar stepped inside, ready to begin the next chapter of his life. Oscar stepped into the spacious showroom, the cool blast of air conditioning contrasting with the warmth outside. Rows of gleaming cars, each one polished to perfection, stretched before him. He paused to admire a sleek black sedan with chrome detailing, imagining himself behind the wheel. "Can I help you?" a voice called out sharply, breaking his moment of reverie. Oscar turned to see a man in a well-fitted suit approaching him. The man's name tag read Benson. His smile was forced, his eyes cold and calculating as they scanned Oscar from head to toe. "Yes, I'd like to inquire about one of the cars," Oscar said politely. Benson's eyes narrowed. "I see. Are you looking for something affordable? Maybe our pre-owned section." Oscar frowned, taken aback by the man's tone. "Actually, I'm here to look at the newer models," he said, gesturing toward the luxury cars. Benson raised an eyebrow and folded his arms. "Look, kid, we don't just let anyone walk in and browse the high-end vehicles. If you're not serious about buying, I'd suggest you look elsewhere. This isn't some public park." Oscar's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected a warm welcome, but this outright dismissal stung. "I'm serious about buying," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I'd like to speak with someone who can assist me." "You're speaking to the right person," Benson replied, his smile now a smirk. "But let me save you some time. These cars aren't cheap, and I doubt you're in a position to afford one. If you want a window shop, feel free to check out the lower-tier models over there." He waved dismissively toward a section at the far end of the showroom. Oscar's patience was wearing thin. "I think you're making some assumptions about me," he said firmly. "And I think I'm saving us both some time," Benson shot back. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual customers to attend to." Before Oscar could respond, Benson turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the middle of the showroom. A few other employees glanced in his direction, but quickly looked away, unwilling to intervene. Feeling humiliated, Oscar clenched his fists and took a deep breath. Part of him wanted to confront Benson, to demand the respect he deserved, but he chose to walk away instead. He had learned from his father that dignity was more powerful than anger. As he stepped outside, the sunlight seemed harsher, the air heavier. The excitement he'd felt that morning was now replaced by a bitter mix of anger and disappointment. Oscar looked back at the building, its shiny glass facade now a stark reminder of the challenges he still faced. Despite everything his family had achieved, he realized that prejudice was a hurdle he would always have to overcome. He pulled out his phone and called his father. "Dad," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "we need to talk." The call was brief, but it was enough to shake Mr. Andrew to his core. As he sat in his large corner office, overlooking the city skyline, he replayed Oscar's words in his mind. "They didn't let me see the cars, Dad. One of your dealers, he treated me like I didn't belong there," Oscar had said, his voice tight with emotion. Mr. Andrew leaned back in his chair, his fists clenched. This was more than a customer service issue. This was personal. He had built Andrew Motors from the ground up, instilling values of respect, integrity, and equality in his employees. The thought of one of his own staff humiliating his son, judging him based on appearance, made his blood boil. Without wasting a moment, Mr. Andrew picked up his phone. "Rachel," he said to his assistant, his tone clipped, "reschedule all my meetings for the afternoon. I need to make an unannounced visit to the flagship showroom." "Yes, sir," Rachel replied, sensing the urgency in his voice. Mr. Andrew stood, adjusting his tailored suit. Though he was known for his calm demeanor in business, today was different. Today, he wasn't just a CEO. He was a father defending his son. The showroom was buzzing with activity when Mr. Andrew arrived. Employees hurriedly stood straighter, plastering nervous smiles on their faces as they recognized their boss. The manager, a middle-aged man with a balding head, rushed forward. "Mr. Andrew, what an honor to have you here," the manager gushed, extending his hand. Mr. Andrew shook it briefly, his expression unreadable. "I'm here for an inspection," he said curtly. "Carry on as usual." The manager nodded and scurried away, barking orders to the staff to ensure everything looked perfect. As Mr. Andrew scanned the room, his eyes landed on Oscar, who was seated near the entrance, looking uncomfortable. He walked over and placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "Are you okay?" Mr. Andrew asked gently. Oscar nodded, but avoided his father's gaze. "I didn't want to make a scene, Dad. I thought I could handle it." "You shouldn't have had to," Mr. Andrew said firmly. "I'll take care of this." Turning toward the nearest employee, Mr. Andrew asked, "Where's Benson?" The employee hesitated, glancing nervously at Benson, who was chatting with a customer across the room. "There," the employee finally said, pointing. Mr. Andrew's jaw tightened as he strode toward Benson. Benson didn't notice Mr. Andrew approaching until the last moment. When he looked up, his face paled. "Mr. Andrew," he stammered, quickly standing up straight. "What a surprise. How can I assist you today?" Mr. Andrew's expression was steely. "You already have, Benson. You assisted me by showing me exactly how poorly you treat our customers." Benson blinked, confused. "Sir, I'm not sure what you mean." "Save it," Mr. Andrew interrupted, his voice cold. "Do you recognize this young man?" He gestured toward Oscar, who had walked up to join them. Benson's eyes flickered toward Oscar, and for a moment he looked genuinely confused. Then realization dawned and his face flushed. I didn't realize he was... You didn't realize he was my son." Mr. Andrew cut him off sharply. "And that makes it acceptable to treat him, or anyone else, with disrespect." I thought," Benson stammered. "That's exactly the problem," Mr. Andrew said, his voice rising. "You thought, but you didn't think about professionalism, respect, or our company's values. Instead, you judged someone based on their appearance and humiliated them in my showroom." The room had fallen silent, every employee and customer watching the confrontation. "Pack your things," Mr. Andrew said, his tone final. "You're done here." Benson's face turned red. "Sir, please." I've worked here for years. It was a mistake. No, Benson, Mr. Andrews said firmly. The mistake was hiring someone who doesn't embody the principles this company stands for. And the lesson you will learn is that actions have consequences. As Benson was escorted out by security, Oscar felt a mix of emotions, vindication, relief, and a lingering sadness. He turned to his father. "Was that necessary, Dad?" he asked quietly. Mr. Andrew placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Yes, Oscar. It's not just about you. It's about the example we set for others. No one should be treated the way you were today." Oscar nodded, understanding the weight of his father's words. For the first time that day, he felt proud, not just of his father, but of the values they shared.